Here's the thing. After 16 plus years of, how long has it been? I started about 6 months after YouTube started uploading videos to YouTube, and you can go way back to the beginning of my feed, and they're really crappy videos. Not to say that they've improved much over the years, but YouTube used to have a huge compression and a time limit, a max time of whatever 2 5 whatever it was minutes, and it was very restricted. So I did. I can't even remember. Oh yeah, Big Blue. Those were my first few videos, and then our early shows. Big Blue was my attempt to make a pneumatic train that ran on regular train tracks, and I was, in the end, mildly successful for straight runs, but the train with the small pistons was too weak to go around corners because there's binding on the wheels on top of the track, and it didn't have enough oomph, enough horsepower, enough torque to stop the binding of the wheels, the wheel sets. And I was impressed overall. And again, I don't want to do a retrospective of my YouTube channel. Because I don't, but Big Blue had 225,000 views since I put it up, and it ranks. Yay! I remember this time. I just made it. It's very hot. And that's hot lemon. Tangent already. I used to be a tea drinker, like all the time. I never drank coffee. I've never drunk coffee in my life. I can't, my body can't even handle really the smell of coffee. When I'm in a room and there's coffee, I know I'm in a room that there, okay, I had a cookie, so I got, anyway, before this video, I shouldn't have done that. A chocolate cookie. Chocolate seems adverse. 5 tangents right after one after another. Chocolate seems to affect my throat for whatever reason for the last 7, 8, 10 years. I don't know what it is. Anywho, and the tangent one. Back to the tangent too. So I grew up in the 70s. I was born in the 60s. I grew up in the 70s when people still smoked a lot. And what I've noticed is back then, most of the people I knew, most of the parents I knew smoked. A little or a lot. We would visit people's homes, and they were chain smokers, and you can see the drapes, the carpets, the ceiling would be yellowed from the smoke. My mom smoked, not a lot. Well, comparatively speaking, we didn't have yellow stain stuff. But she started smoking. She always told me she started smoking when she was 14, and she quit in 1982, cold turkey. And I'm not saying she was a pack-a-day smoker, but she was up there. She smoked quite consistently, and this is my memory. Consistently, she smoked, not like at dinner time or a picnic with the kids, but she smoked. And back then, this is the oddness of the world now. Back then, she would give me like a couple of bucks to run over to IGA Illick store in Winona to buy her a pack of smokes. I want to say Craven A, but I could be wrong. I don't remember. So, and I would buy my mom smokes. At 6 years old, I'd run to the store to buy my mom smokes to ride my bike. And then I remember when that was outlawed, that kids couldn't buy smokes and whatever. So this is going somewhere, by the way. So because the tangent actually has a purpose. So I remember watching Star Wars in the movie theater in 1977. I was all 10 years old. And again, I mentioned we go to the Tivoli movie theater, and I saw other movies there, a lot of movies there, and you would see these little whiffs of when the projector's going. You see these little whiffs of smoke because somebody's having a smoke in the movie theater. In the 70s, like, and today is so like your mind boggles at the thought, but it was so mundane, so what I always say, banal, but banal. Not to sound like Fraser Crane or Niles Crane. It was so mundane that people, like, it was just a given that people would be smoking in a movie theater. And I just remember watching Star Wars and these little wisps of smoke from a dozen people smoking in the theater. Now, I never smoked, again, just like I never drank coffee. Never had a smoke in my life, which is it was more of a it wasn't a conscious. I'm not going to smoke. I just never. Again, my whole life is when people did stuff, in my whole life. And we can get into the discussion of recreational pharmaceuticals that were illegal back then that are not so illegal now. I never did it because that stuff was illegal, because smoking was legal and I didn't smoke. Drinking was legal and I didn't drink. So what happened is that and so not every place, but most places you went to, restaurants, movie theaters, just out in the park, people were smoking. And so when smoking became, I won't say passe, if that's a word I can use in that context, when smoking became verboten, but something that you shouldn't do, and you couldn't do it because it's been outlawed now in public spaces. Did I notice anything? Because I didn't smoke. But what happened was, I didn't notice it when smoking was everywhere, quote unquote, everywhere. I notice it now because some people still buy smoke. You can go to the store if you're over 19 and show ID. You can still buy smokes. And again, don't do it, kids. But you can smoke. You're legally allowed to smoke. No, you're not allowed to smoke in public places. You're not allowed to smoke in the theater. You're not allowed to smoke at dinner. And so what happens is, for me, and it's happened. It happened sporadically, and Sandy and I noticed it. Both of us noticed it. Back in the 70s, you didn't notice it. Now you notice it. So we were driving. This is last summer, and this has happened more than once. This is not one data point. This is dozens of data points since smoking became, something that most people don't do, especially in public. So we're in traffic. There's a red light up ahead. There's a car. At least four or five cars in front of us, and they're smoking. You can see a little whiff of smoke coming out the car every so often. Not vaping, actual smoke. There's a difference between vaping and smoking. I don't condone vaping either. You can't. There's no money to pay me that would make me want to vape. But anyway, that's a whole other story. You vape if you want, but it's not for me. Anyway, and we're 4 or 5 cars back then. And you can smell it instantly. Like it seems like it left the car and came straight to your nostrils. Like it was that bad. Now again, it was probably smoking, but all of a sudden your mind says, this is what your brain got used to smelling back in the 70s everywhere. So you didn't notice it. You did not notice when you walk into a place where nobody's smoking. You still smelled smoke, but your brain is just so accustomed to smelling it everywhere. You didn't notice. Now the car's 4 or 5 in front of us, like way up there. You see a whiff of smoke, and all of a sudden, oh my goodness, and my nostrils hurt. Not physically. I think it's more of a mental thing. Like it's like, no, I like the whiff of it just, and a quick tangent on that one. My friend Sarah at work, this is my last job, 15 plus years ago. She smoked a lot, and then she quit cold turkey. She tried to anyway. She smoked, and she was on the patch, and she was on this and that and this and that. And I was telling her the story about my mom quitting cold turkey in 1982. Boom. Stopped. And I'm here for you, Sarah, whatever you like, because if you go back smoking, I'm not going to think any less of you, but I'm here to help you if you want to keep on going, telling you stories with my mom, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, we used to be on the 7th floor, she'd ride up in the elevator. And that's important to the story. Other people are still smoking in the building, and they would go to the outside to the smoking area, because this place had a smoking area, and they would hop back in the elevator and they go up in the elevator, and I could tell the instant the doors open, because you can smell it now. You didn't notice it back in the 70s, but you smell it now. If somebody steps in the elevator, you know they've been smoking. You know, not talking the wacky tobacco, the Mary Janes. I'm talking the regular smokes, Craven A's, whatever, Marlboro Lights, whatever. Because I know what smokes are. The companies. So somebody steps into the elevator, and the elevator doors, and you're gasping. Well, again, I'm polite, but you know the second somebody steps in the elevator after they've been smoking. And again, back in the day, you didn't, because you're just so used to it. So Sarah and I get off the elevator after this guy got off a floor before us, go wherever he's working. And I said, "Are you thankful now that that you quit smoking? You've been off the cancer stick for a few months now." She goes, "Oh no." I said, she goes, I was being polite in the elevator because I just wanted to like lean right into him and smell the smoke off his clothes. I go, really? Like, I guess, like this smell makes my eyes tear. Like, that's right. Like I try to pull the doors open so I can get out, because this thing is like, I don't want to say it's a stench, but it's just, for me it's a stench. It's like I'd rather smell manure because I worked with it, working on the farms all those years. I would rather smell manure than smokes. So let's talk about that. So, and she goes, no, 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 oh, no, and she said, yeah, if I picked up a cigarette right now, I'd be right back into it. So she had to have the willpower not to pick up a smoke. And my mom said the same thing, because I asked my mom many years after she quit smoking, like, how hard was it? And she goes, oh, it was very hard. And she was being very honest with me. She goes, if I picked up one cigarette at any point, week, month, year, decade after quitting, she'd be right back on it. She said she would. And so her willpower was to not take the first one. And if you don't take the first one, you're not going to take the rest of them. But Sarah said exactly the same thing, my friend Sarah. And I thought that was mildly interesting. This is going somewhere. And honestly, I forgot where it's going now. There's like 5 tangents in a row. Oh yeah, my scratchy throat. That was the first tangent. So I should write these down so I can get back and wrap all of them up. Oh, here's me breaking this guy. Wrap all of them up in a nice story. Anyway, there was a point to all of this, and no, I honestly can't remember what it was. So bottoms up. Oh yeah, coffee. So thing. I grew up. My mom made tea when company came over in the evenings, and they play cards or have a discussion or whatever it is, family or close friends of my parents, and they pull out the Brown Betty, the big huge pot of teapot. Do never ever 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 wash with soap a Brown Betty teapot. You will ruin it. You just rinse it with water, hot water, and you put it on the rack to dry. You never ever rinse. You never get you just rinse it. It's just tea. I got admonished once for washing a Brown Betty. This is decades ago, and I learned my lesson. But anyway, we'd always have tea. And whenever we went to somebody's house, uncle's house, aunt's place, whatever, tea was served after dinner. Tea. So and at church, at all our church functions, they'd walk around with the coffee and tea, but mostly coffee, because everybody drank coffee except for this 8-year-old back in the day, or 10 or 12 or whatever. I'd always have tea, and I love my tea, and I put 2 sugars in it. If you can't see the bottom, it's 2 road tar. That's my tea. A lot of friends that like the really, really ultra black bitter tea, have at it. That's not for me. If I can see the bottom of my cup, that's perfect. Like dip the tea bag in and take it out. Muddy the water a little bit. And so but I have 2 sugars, no cream. Never liked cream in my tea. I tried it. And coffee for me back then, even back in the 70s, had the same effect, and it still does to this day, as smokes do now. When I smell smokes, I told you, when somebody's smoking and they step in the elevator, 5 or 10 minutes or a half an hour after the fact, my eyes want to water. Coffee, even when I was a kid, because we go to all the social functions, all the church functions, they got the big, huge 40-cup percolator. Now, again, more tangents. I love the percolator. That thing is just like a construction, beautiful, wonderful thing. An engineering, beautiful. The whole physics of it, and you see the water bubbling up in that little glass cap in the 40-pot percolator. And I would set that up because I'm a good guy and helping out the church. Hey, 10 years old, I'll set up the percolator. Put the coffee in the thing, and then put the whole thing together and put water in the bottom. Boop, boop, boop. That's great. I love physics. I love all of it. But I can't stand the smell of coffee. I never could stand the smell of coffee. And this is a guy from 19 to 29, almost 39. I'd be at Tim Hortons every day. And back in the day, I'd be there like 3 or 4 times a day at Tim Hortons. And I'd have my hot chocolate, or I'd have my apple juice, or I'd have my whatever else. anything but coffee. I'd have my tea. I'd have tea. Back when they had counter service and you get the ceramic cup, I had a lot of tea back then. So after work, before work, go for a coffee. We say go for a coffee to have my tea. Go for your day job, and you come back and you meet your friends back at Tim Hortons and talk, because I'm single. What am I going home for? And we'd sit there until 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. Sometimes I make sure I bring my book and be there by myself, and sit at the end of the counter, right in the little corner there, and have my tea and then I'd order a donut, and I'd be there for 3 or 4 hours. at Tim Hortons. And coffee, people drinking coffee all the time. But I never, ever, ever liked the smell of coffee. And I know I've tasted it once. I said, no, this is like, I have to put like quadruple sugar and quadruple cream just to cover the taste of coffee. Never liked it. Acquired taste, go ahead. You go acquire it. Because I'm not. I'm 55 now. I'm not gonna go acquire it now. It's like I grew up I never had peer pressure, thankfully, because nobody bothered me. I didn't drink coffee, and nobody said, "Hey, Dave, we're gonna." And yet, when I was in construction and I was in flooring and I was in all those things, all those other jobs back in the day, when you go to a job site or somebody's house that you're putting a brand new floor, the living room and whatever, kitchen, ceramic or vinyl or carpet, whatever, the owner would. Oh, I'm going to work now, because we get there at 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to put the floor in. It's going to take us today. I'm going to work now. He says, the coffee's on the stove. Like every single time they offer coffee, nothing else, coffee, because people drink coffee. 99% of the world drink coffee, not me. so I'd had all these jobs. Even when I started in IT, free coffee. The percolator would be, the coffee machine would be in the lunchroom or in the little cul-de-sac, little vestibule over there. Like when I worked at Laidlaw, they had 2 or 3 stations throughout the building. It's a big building where the coffee was always there and the coffee was always made, and you could smell it went back at your desk and I'm going, it's never like the smell. Whatever. And so I just go glass of water. They didn't offer tea. So my company now has the nearly boiling water coming out of the coffee maker, and make sure and every time they mention that they're going to get a new coffee maker, make sure they got that little tap on it so I can have my hot water, because I make my tea, I make my hot chocolate, I make my apple cider. I'm happy. They're happy. So anyway, that's my whole thing about coffee. I never drank it. And so this, and lately, and so this is the end of the tangents. I think they're all wrapped up now, except for the very, very ending. I knocked the guy off again. I had tea yesterday. My dad was over here. My stepmom and my dad were over here for Josh's birthday. They had, we always have tea after dinner. And so when they're here, I have tea. I make it. We got a steel Black Betty. It's not really Black Betty, but a steel with insulation. It's a nice teapot that keeps the tea warm for a very long time. And so I made tea for Pops and me and Diane. Fantastic. So this is probably, I have 3 or 4 teas a year now. Before it was like all the time, but I have 3 or 4 teas a year now. I love my tea. But this is hot, by the way. This is something different. Sandy got me on it years ago when we first started seeing each other. You boil water, you put it in your teapot, your teacup, your mug, and you put lemon. Just a squeeze of lemon, like a real lemon, or you just get the real lemon from whatever, and you put a squeeze of lemon in there. And she puts sugars in hers. I just take mine straight because it tastes like rhubarb. And so here's me. I love rhubarb. I eat rhubarb out of the garden. I grew up with a huge rhubarb patch in my dad's place, both places, because he had a huge garden. And so when I'm cutting the grass, pushing a mower at the age of 12, 14, 18, I would just go to the garden. I would grab a stalk of rhubarb, like a carrot, and people, what are you doing? Oh, rhubarb is the most horrendously tasting thing ever. It's disgusting. You have to have like rhubarb rhubarb crumble with a lot of like sugar and a lot of mixed stuff into it. No, no, raw rhubarb, right from the stalk. Just eat it. Do not eat the leaves, people. So this safety tip from your Uncle Dave: do not eat rhubarb leaves. You will get sick. The leaves are poisonous, just like all leaves to people. We are not giraffes. We do not eat leaves. Some leaves. So anyway, I love my rhubarb. I love rhubarb pie. I love rhubarb crumble. I love rhubarb pudding. Loved all of it. My mom used to make rhubarb pudding. Fantastic stuff. But I also eat just raw rhubarb right out of the garden. Just go there, rip off the stalk, rip off the leaf, put that in the humus pile, and just eat the stalk. Keep pushing the more. Straight up, that's what I used to do. And so in the summertime, I still go to my dad's place, right? We go to bring Josh over there for whatever. And the very first thing I do is a beeline to his garden and grab a stalk of rhubarb. So, and my wife said, "What are you doing?" I love rhubarb. I always love rhubarb. And so, and that wasn't, and this is this whole thing. So this is the meta talk now. After all those tangents wrapped up, this is the meta talk. I never had to acquire a taste for it. I liked it the very first time I had it. I liked rhubarb. I can't think of too many things that I acquired a taste for that I didn't like at the beginning. Like a lot of kids complain about eating Brussels sprouts. I loved Brussels sprouts when I was a kid. I adored Brussels sprouts. I thought they're the best thing ever. Mom used to fry them up. Fantastic. Little butter in there, some little spices in there. Fantastic. Or just boil them. Fantastic. I love Brussels sprouts. Still do to this day. Asparagus, cauliflower, like all the stuff that other kids hated. I love my greens. I adore my greens. String beans, snibona, all of it. Peas. The only reason why I didn't like peas too much is because we had to go pick them. We had to go to my opa's place. He had like 5 acres and he had these rows and rows and rows and rows of peas every single year. And we would have to go through there and pick them and then shuck them and pod them and all that. It was like a whole waste. I could be in the sandbox. I could be at the beach. I could be climbing my treehouse. Nope, I am picking peas. So there was a intellectual dislike of peas from all the work I had to do because all the other vegetables were not that hard. Beans, pick them, boil them, blanch them, whatever. Peas were work. Peas were actual work. I didn't like that. Anything, and I say this to Sandy, and this is a flippant way of saying it. I'm at the top of the food chain. I do not want to work for my food. This is why I don't like chicken. Like KFC. Oh, I love KFC, but I don't like chicken because you have to work at it because you just stuff your face. Not that I stuff my face like a slob. but I don't like working for my food. I just want to eat and get on with my life because eating is, interfering with the other stuff I want to do. Unless you're out with dinner with friends or family. But if I'm on my own, eating is and go back to playing video games, watching Star Trek, playing the leg room, whatever. Eating is just stopping me from doing what I need to do, but I'm hungry, so I'd go eat. And this is when I lived on my own. So one more tangent, because we like tangents, before I get into what I wanted to talk about. When I lived on my own, my house was, I was a bachelor since 19 years old. I moved out when I was 19, 20. I moved in with friends, and then that ended after a year. We all went our separate ways. I had my own apartment and another apartment and blah, blah, blah. I slept on my buddy's couch for a few years. And then I bought this house. Well, I had 2 apartments before I bought this house. But every place I lived on my own, and I'm gonna say it was partly due to my Boy Scoutness and Cubs and Scouts. You had to have the good housekeeping badge, and my mom was who my mom was. And when we were growing up at a very young age, like single digits, and well into single digits, like I'm thinking 5 or 6, not just like 9 right before 10. We had dish nights, the 3 of us kids, because, and mom would always do the washing. We didn't have a dishwasher. This is 1972. Are you kidding? There's no dishwasher in the house. That's a whole other tangent. So she would wash, and one of us kids would be drying the dishes every single night. And so there's 7 nights a week. And so we each had 2 nights where Brian, Debbie, Terry, we had to dry dishes and put them away. That was our job. And then when it comes to Cubs, to get your good housekeeping badge, Mom said to me, you make the beds, you do the laundry, you do the dishes, all of it, washing and drying, clean the house. Because my mom was my Cub leader. She would know if I was doing a good, she couldn't just realize there's no signature from my parents saying, yeah, he did his job and give him the badge. No, 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 no. Not with my mom. You had to earn it. And so for me to get my good housekeeping badge was like a month of cleaning the house, doing chores around the house, more chores than we normally did because we always did chores. And I look back at that now, and I might have griped like all kids. I'm not playing Lego. I'm vacuuming the floor. But I would say, when I was very young, I had a quote unquote messy room. My brother was a neat freak. That kind of swapped. But as I got older, I just got used to and in the habit of putting things back to where they're supposed to be. After I take something out and do something and play Lego, whatever, I just put it back, and then I don't have to touch it again until I want to look at it again. And I just got into that habit over and over and over again because I hate walking into a room and seeing clutter everywhere. Unless I know I'm coming back to it. Like my garage right now, it's a complete disaster zone because we threw everything in there from Christmas and January. And it's been so cold, I haven't cleaned the garage. But usually the garage is fairly decent. But that's always the worst room because everything, it's a storage area and things get thrown in there. But my Lego room, I'm pretty comfortable with it right now. The rec room, mint. Because and Sandy even mentioned this when she came to my place for the first time. We were dating for a few weeks, and she came over to this house. And I had been living here on my own. I bought it like a year and a half before I met her. And so I lived here by myself for a year and a half as a bachelor. But again, I came from apartment living. And she came in and she said to me, did you clean up before I came over? Did you trying to impress the woman? I said, no, I might have dusted a little bit, but the house is clean because when I'm done with something, I put it back on the shelf, in the cupboard, in the closet, wherever it's supposed to go, because I don't want to trip over it. And I'm a klutz. And if there's stuff on the floor, I'm going to trip over it. If there's stuff sitting on top of a table, it bothers me, especially when I say, the storage closet that's supposed to go into is 3 feet away. Why is it just sitting there on the table? Like you just put the Monopoly, but whatever it is, put it back in the shelf. So overall, I do not work hard at keeping a house clean because as I go, I clean the house. And then certain times you do a more thorough cleaning, like the dusting and the vacuuming and the washing down of the cupboard doors and blah, blah, blah. Sure, absolutely. But in the daily stuff, everything goes in the recycle bins right off the bat. They don't sit on the counter. The things go back in the fridge, whatever. So anyway, that's how I've always managed it. And I'm going to blame my mom for that. I really am going to blame my mom for that. And again, I'm not a neat freak. I am so not a neat freak. I look at this room. You've seen the video. Definitely not a neat freak. Definitely not OCD on the immaculicity. Immaculicity. That's a new word. And so when you go into the want ads for a cleaner, you'll see the expression or a house showing whatever. It'll say Dutch cleaned, like the Dutch people have like a corner on cleaning houses perfectly. But I will say, growing up with Dutch aunts, that you could eat off the floor. Like it was that clean. I never bothered with that kind of clean all the time. I don't have the time or the patience for it. I will get down on my hands and knees and I'll wash the floor. I don't use a mop for my little 10x10 kitchen. It's just easier for me to get in my hands with a rag, towel with soap and just wipe the floor on my hands and knees. Sure. It's 10 feet. It's 10 feet. That's 100 square feet. Why wouldn't I do that? So, because it's just go get the mop bucket, fill up the mop bucket, blah, blah, let's get the mop going. No, I just sink, mop with my hand, floor's clean, and walk away. So it's, again, I'm fundamentally, and this is my biggest mode operandi, my biggest MO, fundamentally lazy. Me, fundamentally lazy. I do not like working harder than I have to. So if I find an easier way of doing something, I'm following that path. That's what I'm gonna do. And so anyway, what happened was I lived on my own all those years by myself. and I'm cooking dinner, and 9 times out of 10, a dinner is one pot and one fork. And that's all the dishes I have for the night. Because I would come home from work, I'd have pasta, either spirally or shells or just regular spaghetti. I would put it in the water in the pot, put it on the stove, let it boil, shake it while I'm watching like WKRP or whatever I'm watching in reruns, Star Trek. and then drain the water out of the pot, and then put the pasta sauce in the pot and leave it on the stove under the simmer so the pasta sauce warms up. And then I eat at the table, at the computer desk, at the Lego desk right here. Rah, 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 rah. Not messy, not like a Neanderthal, but I don't have a napkin. I don't have anything else. It's just because I don't make a mess when I eat. And I don't like shove it in my face like I'm acting, but I'm just making the point. So one pot and one fork, the only dishes I have for one night. And then usually there's stuff because I make a big pot of pasta and I put it in the fridge. Work for next day, for lunch or whatever, or even warm it up in the microwave the night after for dinner then. Like when you live on your own, I have a very good and dear friend. I have a very good and dear friend who was as single as long as I was. And he had a fundamentally different lifestyle when it came to making his meals, because he would set up a plate, like a placemat with a knife, fork, and a fork and spoon, whatever the order is. That I forget the WKRP episode when they tell you where the forks and knives are supposed to go, and a plate, and a cup, and a candle. Because I love the guy, so he'd have a candle. So he would set this up for himself every night, and I love him for it. Again, love him for it. I'm not faulting him at all. That's what he wanted to do. This is his idea for what his expectation for having dinner, because that's what he grew up with. And I grew up with it too. Like my parents, like we had the play settings and whatever when the three of us kids. When I moved up my own, that wasn't a fundamental need for me to have. What I learned is mom and dad split when I was still 17. Me and grilled cheese sandwiches. How quick is it for me to make a grilled cheese sandwich for me or KD? And it was a KD where I learned about the pot, just eating out of the pot. Like before, when we were kids, we put the pot, make the KD. That's craft dinner for you Americans. The KD, and you put on your plate or your bowl. And here, Terry, here's yours. Here's mine. Here's Brian's. Now, live on my own, why am I getting a bowl dirty? Why am I getting a bowl dirty? I can eat craft dinner out of the pot. Now, Sandy shows up, I'm more polite. I'm not going to eat out of the pot. So I'm not going to be the Neanderthal in this relationship. And so we have play settings, and we have a dinner every night, and it's great. And well, even before we had Josh. So you also have to understand in context, if you're with somebody, you're not going to be eating out of the pot. That's a no. That's because they're going to be running for the door. Anyway, so I 30 minutes of talking about absolutely nothing except my lifestyle. And to talk about my hot lemon right here. That's how this whole thing started. I'm going to tell you what's in this cup is my hot lemon. I put like a half a centimeter of lemon juice in the bottom and pour hot water in the rest of it. That's it. It's not tea. It's not coffee. It's hot lemon. Some people say there's beneficial. No, it's just like tea. Some people, like all the years of studies about coffee perking you up because it's got tea, whatever. I forget. No, I don't care. I used to keep track of this. Coffee has some beneficial side effects, and every 10 years somebody goes, oh, coffee is bad for you, and oh, coffee's good for you, oh, coffee's bad for you, just like cholesterol over my lifetime. Whatever. Drink coffee when I drink coffee. I'm not going to drink coffee. I'm not interested in drinking coffee. I still like my tea, but I just can't be bothered. Can't be bothered with the tea bag. I pour hot lemon in here and I put hot water in it. It's good enough for me. It has some flavor to it, and I like it. And so that's my whole 34-minute story about what's in this cup.